And in other news, Facebook shows us why the mainstream media doesn't have comment sections anymore. I went the other day and I saw this linked, which is sponsored content. Yes, someone actually paid for me to see this. And it shows this pussy doing this air ballet in front of an LGBT flag saying, "Me after I joined the largest LGBTQ panel in the European Union," and we get to see the European Union flag, we get to see the money that was paid for this advert. And the person says, "Do you want to help the LGBTQ community? Do you want to be the loudest voice? Oh, and do you want to receive Amazon voucher? Fill Wonderland survey and let the world know that you are the voice we really need." And I suppose people are not taking the bribe because, again, this is sponsored content. Like the people responding here aren't from a particular group or anything like that. And we're talking about Facebook, where if you're even remotely problematic, you get zooked. And this is the responses that we get. We get, "No thanks, I stand for the normal world," and we get to see a picture of a little girl with an LGBT flag touching what appears to be a hairy, muscular man. And this gets 6 likes. Then we see another guy posting some puke emojis. This got like 4 likes. We are normal, we are not immune, right? So imagine if the comment sections would be opened again, because I would be willing to pay money. If The Guardian would have a subscription where you get to see the comment section, I would pay that subscription. I'm legitimately curious to see how people would respond to this article that talks about bringing back prohibition. Obviously, it worked so well the first time around, didn't it? I understand the crimes were at an all-time low. No one was drinking alcohol because it was illegal. Yes, we're going to actually explain why banning alcohol doesn't work, while banning other things such as cocaine and heroin also doesn't work, but it still limits the problem with it. So apparently the main issue that The Guardian has is that this leads to domestic violence. And when they say domestic violence, they don't mean women beating men, because women also drink alcohol. And I have seen cases where women have poured hot oil on a man's head, where women throw with plates and cutlery. I have seen really nasty gashes in hospital done by women violence. They also don't include the LGBTQ community, where apparently there is a problem within lesbian couples far bigger than the gays. No, when they say domestic violence, it's just man beating a woman. It's simple life for simple people. You don't need to have like complex issues that you need to do. No, very simple for the reader of The Guardian. Now, what I find interesting is that when a person is intoxicated with alcohol to the point where they become violent, they're a danger to almost all the people around them. I mean, they will beat up random people. That's what alcohol does. It removes inhibition. It can lead to car crashes and other things. But I guess women are most affected. Yes, obviously. Drunk people are violent, women most affected, and women's safety. And in order to protect women's safety, we need to ban alcohol. Brilliant. I think we should get the Saudis in charge of Britain. What do you guys think? Wouldn't it be the best? I mean, the Saudis don't have alcohol. I understand the violence towards women is at an all-time low in Saudi Arabia. In fact, they're on the Women Council at the UN, aren't they? Perfect. You know what? I do think we need to bring the Saudi family into the United Kingdom to legislate for people like Moira Donegan. Moira Donegan doesn't know how to live properly in a free society. She needs the strength of the Saudi family to legislate. She needs big government to take away the beer and the alcoholic beverages. Honestly, I can see why these people like Islam. Like, if you're such a person that really doesn't know how to avoid getting beaten by a drunken man, what can I say? You need Islam. You need Sharia. Inshallah. Huh? Is it how is it? It's like inshallah. I don't like this. Or how do they do it? They point the fingers on. Anyway. But do you know why banning alcohol doesn't work? In a Western country, the reason it works in Islam is because of its religious connotations. Like your neighbors can rat on you if they see you drinking alcohol, right? Because the entire population views it as impure, something that's not sacred. So then if someone drinks it, or they find a speakeasy or something like that, then they immediately call the authorities. So that's why banning alcohol works in the Middle East, because it's a religious thing. Banning alcohol doesn't work in a Western country because unless you're planning to also make fruits illegal, anyone can go to the market, purchase some prunes, have a distillery in their basement, and make alcohol. It's more difficult for people to have an entire plantation of coca plant and then make some cocaine. That's difficult to hide. And people don't just sell coca leaves on the corner of the street. But fruits, yeah, literally anyone can sell fruits. And you can create alcohol, you fucking morons. I generally do not believe, like, how do they hire people for The Guardian? Based on IQ level? Like, if it fits the room temperature, then they're hired to write for The Guardian? Who reads these things? But anyway, right, no, because I'm generally thinking the person is far right. Like, she actually makes the case that women vote led to the prohibition. And giving the women the right to vote managed to get them to vote for the prohibition. And it's like, you're selling this as if it's a good thing. Like, unlike its sister struggle, the temperance movement now has a bit of a bad reputation. It's easy to see the women-led, often explicitly religious movement as a group of reactionaries attempting to impose moral obsequiousness on a public that did not share their values. Isn't it fascinating that the more you read from far-left publications, and usually the more far to the left the publication is, they end up arriving to the same conclusion like the most fundamental religious nutcases. I just can't explain why that is. Now, they managed to create like different logical steps. They managed to create different algorithms on how they reach their conclusion. But in the end, it's like, oh, okay, porn is bad. Alcohol is bad. You know, it's interesting. I find it very fascinating. I think maybe it's because these people are authoritarian and they're moral busybodies, as we like to call them, and they just like to preach to other people. That might be the only explanation that I can come up with. But here's the reason why this is bad, even from a religious standpoint. Okay, a life without virtue is a life without happiness. And the only way to achieve virtue is to have a choice between virtue and vice. And if you only have one option, and that option is virtue, then you can never achieve happiness because you have a loss of meaning. It's like in Demolition Man. This is why the people in San Angeles had a crisis of mental health. Because they were robbed of the choice between virtue and sin. This is why, like, even if you're a religious person, you notice that God gives people the choice to love him or not to love him, to sin or not to sin. And what the religious fundamentalists are trying to do is to rob people away of their ability to sin. Now, I get it in certain cases, like, you know, certain drugs like cocaine, which damages the nervous system, creates incredibly high levels of addictions. Yeah, those can be banned. And, you know, if you even want to talk about alcohol, you can have a case to ban it. But again, it's impractical. You cannot do it because anyone can buy some fruits and create alcohol in their basement. So no, you can't effectively ban it unless you convert to Islam and you make sure that everyone not only converts but they legitimately believe. You know, so I don't see it. It's just... But anyway, right. So apparently they say that in the end, prohibition itself was an obscene failure. Alcohol continued to be sold and consumed, and the government's vain attempts to enforce the ban on booze bred their own kinds of violence. Oh, who the fuck? Not to mention like the violence the mafia used to do. My God. The leaders of the movement were mocked as nagging housewives out to ruin the fun. If you actually know anything, the leaders of the movement weren't women. It's honestly the story of feminism. Behind every single strong feminist is a white male university professor. Almost every single time. Like I remember during the Kavanaugh protests, they managed to find like the university professors that were teaching these students to do chants and stuff. And it was quite a tragic day for the American parents. Imagining, like sending your daughter to a university, and instead of her coming home with good grades, you find out that she comes home with a criminal record and she's being arrested. Now, none of the professors and the teachers that instigated the students were arrested, and you have the video evidence on YouTube with countless of these professors instigating and trying to push students to protest. They weren't the ones getting arrested by the cops. Isn't that fascinating? But instead, you would see like a man going there, and then like five women going, like they were being taught on what to chant and what to say. And this is feminism, unfortunately, I guess, or fortunately, if you're the people profiteering from it. Kind of gives you a big dick to know that you have an army of strong women, huh? Doing your ideology for you. So no, the leaders of the movement of prohibition, while the ones on the street were women, the ones pumping the money were men. So you can't say, oh, they were criticizing them because they were women. No, because their ideas came from men. The motivation and makeup of the temperance movement are more complicated than their simplified legacy would suggest. Rather than a regressive movement consumed with moralist disdain for alcohol use, many of its ardent supporters wanted alcohol to be banned for a much more practical reasons: women's safety. How about you fucking marry a guy that's not drunk? Like, is that so difficult? Like, men need to look out for women that are gold diggers. Men need to look out for women that are the mother of all harlots. Men need to look out for women that have venetic disease. Do you see me complaining and bitching and whining about it? No, just learn how to tell people. If you have a drunk husband, the moment he slaps you once, you dump his ass. Jesus, is that so difficult? Oh yeah, but like putting responsibility and talking about individualism, like from a case to case basis. Oh, let's talk about groups. Yes, groups. Percentages. Drunk men, they observed, were more likely to sexually assault women, more likely to beat their wives and children, and more likely to subject passing women to sexual harassment. Well, that's fine, because now you have the sexual liberation, where women drink a lot of alcohol too. And look, lady, if you don't like it, why don't you convert to a man? Apparently you can do that now. You can convert. It's like a fashion. You put on a different clothing and you're a man. Boom. Problem solved. Look, I have fixed the issue. Why didn't you call me, Guardian? You could have called me. If you're a woman suffering from domestic abuse, identify as a man. Problem solved. The percentages is going to fix itself out. Huh? What? Are you saying you can't? Oh, you're transphobic, aren't you? Oh, you're a turf. Oh, fuck off. Then I'm not going to give you a platform. Not going to honor you with a platform. No. Domestic abuse solution. Women identify as men. Problem solved. Men identify as women. Oh, that fixes the percentage even more, doesn't it? So they didn't all see drunkenness as an offense to their Christian morality, although some of them did. For the most part, they saw male drunks as a threat to women's safety. So we don't see any citation. We don't see any sort of study, poll. No, this journalist pulls this shit out from her ass. Probably some cherry-picked cases, which I'm sure would have existed, but no, the overwhelming part of the movement was founded on Christian morality. So please, shut the fuck up. In other words, temperance has come to be seen as a movement of nagging house moms, but it could be better understood as a mass movement against domestic violence. Okay, no, it wasn't a movement against domestic violence. It was a movement to ban alcohol. And they succeeded, and it ended up being worse for America. Because even though the government banned it, alcohol was still being sold. The mafia managed to make millions of dollars. The government used violence to crack down on the people that were still drinking. People that were drinking alcohol got arrested. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Do you think you should go to jail for drinking a beer? Perhaps the feminist energy of the temperance movement is why the liquor industry lobbied so hard, not only against the temperance movement, but against women's right to vote. Are you a fucking cretin? No, at this point, seriously, who wrote this garbage? Who wrote this garbage? Like, look, how did you manage to get a journalistic degree? How? In what world do these people like this shouldn't be allowed next to a keyboard? Honestly. So let me get this straight. No, like let's look at this lady's worldview, because it's just quite baffling. It's just the most absurd thing that I ever. So the liquor companies were against the temperance movement, not because they were going to end up out of business. Like if I'm a beer making company and the law passes that no one is allowed to drink beer, do you not think that I would lobby against it? You know, if I am a if I'm a dildo manufacturer and you have a lobby to ban dildos, wouldn't I lobby against you? Because you're trying to put me out of business. It's like self-preservation. But no, according to this journalist, it's the feminist energy of the temperance movement that the liquor industry lobbied against it. Are you fucking kidding me? Did you read what you wrote? This is like levels of insanity not seen since 2014. So if men were leading the movement, then the liquor company would have been there are guys. Like honestly, my God. And they also went against the women's right to vote. Well, obviously because as you said, it happened that most of them were women, but that doesn't mean that if they were men, the liquor company wouldn't have campaigned against them. And by the way, they wanted to vote for men that were going to ban alcohol. But as more and more states granted women the right to vote, the newly empowered female electorate voted overwhelmingly for local candidates who opposed alcohol. That is the temperance movement mind who opposed male violence against women. Is this person far right? No, seriously, I'm curious. Is Maura Donegan like far right? Is she trying to push far right talking points to convince people that giving women the right to vote wasn't a good idea? Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Like, you're making the argument that, yeah, after women got the right to vote, the first thing they did was the Prohibition movement. Which most people now, they agree it's a bad thing. And you're praising it. Terrified that the local push for dry laws would succeed at the national level if women were granted the right to vote, the liquor lobby deliberately funded the campaign of national politics who opposed women's suffrage. Yes, very, very misogynistic of them. It's not like that was just a means to an end to achieve their goals. It's like any means necessary when it's a fight for survival. It's like the left, writing articles about getting rid of the electoral college because they're not winning the elections. Or giving 16-year-olds the right to vote, or getting rid of SCOTUS because Donald Trump is putting judges they don't like. It's the same shit. It's trying any means possible in order to achieve your goal. But what I like about this is that then they talk about, men are twice as likely as women to binge drink, and male consumption of alcohol is linked to increased violence. Again, as I mentioned, just identify as a man if you're a woman, problem solved. Studies have shown that the number of alcohol sellers in a given area is correlated to the prevalence of domestic violence. 88% rapists on college campuses use alcohol. Now, again, like you would think that they realize that banning doesn't work and maybe a different solution should be tried, like the one I suggested. Women should identify as men. That would work 100%. But another solution, would be religion. But these people are against religion. They're Marxists. So what do? Oh, you can't really do anything unless you want to ban it and just retry, do the repeat, the rewind. Now, while it is true that men do drink more than women, I would like to point out that women are making a comeback and they're managing to outdrink men in certain cases. And The Guardian would not tell you about things like this, which I just recently Googled women drunk UK. Like, this is someone's daughter right here. Maybe she's a university professor, or she's going to become one day at the Cathedral of Gender Studies. Imagine if someone would plaster this on her door. Like kind of ruins the reputation. Ruins the reputation. And you don't see the Guardian complaining about this. Well, I guess it's not violence. Okay, no, sure, it's not violence. It's career ruining. That's what it is. Career ruining, especially if you try to become something like a judge or a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, and you won't see the Guardian talk about the dangers of over drinking, which would actually help in creating some stigma and lowering people that are drinking. But no, you will have journalists talk about ladies' night out and drinking, and then you'll have another journalist saying bring back prohibition. You can't have both. If you want to actually lower drinking, which in my opinion is a good thing, right? It needs to be done voluntarily by people choosing not to drink. Teach women how to recognize drunk men. Teach women how to dump men the moment they slap them once. The first time a woman gets slapped by a man, she should dump him. Find another relationship. That's what the Guardian should teach. Not the big daddy government taking the beer away from everyone, women included. I'm even curious now, like if you would have a prohibition movement, if how many women would actually be behind it? Because I guarantee to you, not the ones in my town, not the ones I went to with at the university. That's for sure. Anyway, hopefully you like this video, and I will see you all later on my live stream.